Good morning. So this Mamar, or this section of the Mamar, is kind of a continuation from yesterday. Although even if you missed it, you could still follow along. Mitzvah Hashem, you'll learn a lot. The general concept was that Yaakov's sending Malachim to Esav was trying to see if he could access Esav's intense spiritual source, which is Toyu, the world of chaos, a world that has much more spiritual energy than the world of Tikkun, which is Yaakov's source. Now, a word on that, a reminder, Tikkun is the orderly, functional, practical way that you could have worlds. In the Tohu world where Esav comes from, it was not sustainable, it crashed. And till today, we're picking up those pieces, trying to elevate and refine those sparks, those fragmented shards, pieces from the kalim, the tools, the vessels of the world of Tohu, the world of chaos. But Yaakov is sending a message to Esav saying, I elevated everything I could. In other words, my world of Tikkun. I lived by Lavan. I had all these physical things, or have all these physical things, which he included various animals and the servants and the maids and all the things that he had. He elevated them, which means he dealt with them properly. And he elevated all the sparks that were there and so on. And now I want to see if we could perhaps touch and access the spiritual levels that Esav has. Now, probably for the last 22 years, while I, Yaakov, was working on my portion in the world and growing and refining spiritually all of the physical things I was coming in contact with, I'm sure Esav, or I hope Esav, was doing the same. What's the response that he gets from Esav? So we're on page Chav Dalad Amud Gimel, which is page 48 in Torah. Maybe I should post a link in the bottom where you could order this. Vayeshuva Malachim al Yaakov Leimer. The Malachim returned to Yaakov and they said, Bonu al Achicha al Esav. We came to your brother. We came to Esav. V'gam helech likraschav arba me'es ish imay. He's also going towards you. However, he has a different plan. He has 400 men. There are commentaries that tell us it was 400 troops, meaning 400 men, but each man was overseeing a brigade of soldiers, and he's out to get you and your entire camp. Now, Torah tells us what Yaakov did. He prepared for war. He prepared a gift to try to appease and to not negotiate, but appease and try to come to some kind of terms with Esav, and he of course davened to Hashem. But let's focus on the answer of the Malachim regarding Esav's status. Pirush Shuvas HaMalachim Ukach. The answer of the angels, or the messengers, that went to Esav was as follows. She'im hayes, even though shemechamas cha, as far as you're concerned, it's true that as far as you're concerned, it's very fitting, deserving, and appropriate that you should get from the level of Makif. Because you have the shleimus of Tikkun. In other words, you, Yaakov, you did your part. The maniyah here, what's holding it back, is your brother. It's true, from your perspective, not just perspective, but from your part, you finished your Tikkun. You did whatever you could do in this world. You maximized the elevations possible, and you're ready really for a better world for Mashiach to come. But Esav, the counterpart, is not. What can we do about that? He's still in a way of brokenness, which means all of the fragmentation that's down here from the world of Tohu is still here. It was not at all yet refined. How, if so, is he going to elevate from his root in Makif of Tohu if he didn't do anything? He can't just give you his levels that you're requesting, which we need to properly elevate this world, if he didn't do anything yet. He can't access it. He's still in a broken state down here. He's still down here. How do we know that he's still down here? Maybe Esav in the last 22 years did something else. Maybe he did similar to Yaakov and he worked on himself and he improved and he picked up the pieces. The proof that he's in a broken state, he's going towards you with 400 people to attack. So obviously he's not in a good place. and he's looking to attack Yaakov Avinu. So there's nothing to talk about as far as right now getting his Tayu energy, right? Now, what are these 400 men that he's coming with? What do they represent? So the Alter Rebbe brings here a very fascinating explanation, which shows us that any time something is taken or given from holiness, the spiritual energy, the power, the effect that it has, could unfortunately end up in places that are impure and could be used in a negative way. It's very important to realize that everything comes from Hashem, of course, and all energies and all light and all power is from Hashem, and sometimes it could be corrupted by other sources and used in the wrong way. So let's see where these 400 men come from and what it represents. Pirush, Dalad Meis Ish, Dinim Koshim Shalachitzainim. These 400 men, these are the harsh judgments, if you will, from the externalities, let's call it loosely impure levels. It comes from the 400 difficult houses of judgment which are found. Which, because of Idr Rabbah, it's part of the Zohar, it's explained that the idea of these 400 Batei Dinim. But these 400 have a source, which is not the greatest source. But the source of that source is actually very great. Where does it come from? Now, the source of the source, the root of the root of these 400 above mentioned men that Esav is coming with, is he says a fascinating thing. A few parshas ago, Avraham Avinu had to buy a plot to bury his wife Sarah. He bought it in Hebron. He paid 400 silver coins. He gave it to a man called Ephraim. Ephraim was not a holy man. He was not a good person. And it ended up in Klippas. Avraham Avinu's 400 coins ends up by Ephraim. Now, he didn't make a mistake. He gave it for a reason, which we'll soon see. But Ephraim either misused it or corrupted it, or because it was by him, it ends up eventually, these 400 levels represented by the coins, by the silver, ends up by Esav. And Esav now has a koyach that he's going with against Yaakov. No, he didn't do anything to him. The Eibishter saved him. It all worked out. But the 400 men represent this level of klippa, which really originates from Avraham Avinu, but it was messed up in the process when Ephraim had it. What are the 400 coins really? Really what they are 400 worlds of desire. It's the dwelling of tzaddikim in the world to come. Tzaddikim have chambers in Gan Eden, the world to come. And these chambers are filled with ava for the Eibishter, which kesef, silver, is from the lashon of nichseif, the strong desire. They are lights of the flow of supernal delight. They come from the level of Atika Kadisha. Atika Kadisha is the higher level of Keser. Keser has two levels to it, Arich and Atik, Ratzin and Tainug. The higher level, so let's loosely call it Atika Kadisha, is Tainug or Eineg Ha'olyan, and that's where it comes from. It's the connector between the essence of the Eibishter to the process of Ishtalshalos, which is the world of Atzilus. As it's known, as you know, in general, Keser, the crown in Seder Ishtalshalos, we generally speak about 10 spheres, which start with intellect, which is Chochmah, and then Bina, then Das. On top of this head, on top of this crown, so to speak, obviously it's not a body, there's a Keser, on top of this head is a Keser. That Keser is the step between Atzmus and Netzolim, created creatures, beings, the world. And from there come the flow of supernal delight to tzaddikim and Mashiach will come. That's the idea of the 400 worlds of desire, which these are the 400 silver coins that we mentioned before. Now, once we're saying that Avram Avinu's coins that he gave over are not just money, but it's a level which represents tremendous ava to Hashem, and it alludes to the 400 dwelling places or chambers that tzaddikim have in Elam Haba. The nikra iver la seicher. The money that he used, literally it means it's tender, it's currency that you could use anywhere. It's different types of monetary tools, and silver coins was one that you could use anywhere. Walk in any country, any place. It's currency that works. But the word seicher, which means businessman, also means going around. What happens when someone does business? He buys, he sells, the money goes around, the merchandise goes around. But going around represents keser. Scher, seicher is lashon scher, as the Gemara on Shabbos says, which that represents makif of all ishtalshlos. We touched on this yesterday, that you have different levels of godliness. You have a lower level which could be internalized and go into something, the world, the person, and so on. Then you have levels that are so high it can't be internalized. It can't go into in a primistic way. It remains in makif. And usually when you say makif, it means it's a very high level, and therefore all it could be for now is in the way of makif. It can't be internalized. So seicher, eiver la seicher, which are these 400 coins, means it's circling around. It's makif. It's a very lofty ruchnistic level. These 400 coins of Avram. So why in the world did Ephraim get it? Why did he give it to him? Which later ends up by Esav, and Esav is using it chas v'shalom to go against Yaakov Avinu. So it says like this: it goes to Keser. Sorry, it comes from Atzmos Ein Seif, which is higher than also Keser, meaning it's the essence of Hashem. From the essence of Hashem, and then they pass through and they flow into the level of Keser. When we show them from there they flow to tzaddikim and Mashiach will come.
Yeah, and he called me.
The inyan is seen al Ephraim, and the idea of giving it to Ephraim. Why did Avraham Avinu give it to Ephraim? Because it's like Avodas Habirurim. He's depositing it, he's investing it, he's giving it into a place that's not so good, with the hope that this godly koyach is going to be able to reach so low and elevate all the sparks that may be there. So the goal of going into a place, or in this case, of Avraham Avinu giving levels of kedusha that we just described, which is coming from Atzmos, going down through Keser into this world, the point of it was to have an elevation to do Avodas Habirurim of the lowest of places. But in the process, he did it for a reason. When it went down, it unfortunately descended at such a level that they became the 400 men of Esav. Time is it?
8:56.
No, okay. Now, 400 is alludes to something else as well. We're sak. It's the idea of sackcloth. Shin kuf is 300 and kuf is 100, is 400. Right there, 400. It says al b'shamayim kadres, the sak osim k'tusam. And Chazal also tell us regarding, it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, that a teira to get a sack. What does it mean? Sackcloth represents obviously something negative. Unfortunately, it could end up in the external places. The Enosh is Avraham Avinu gave this or put this with the intent that it should be able to elevate the lowest levels, and it will. But unfortunately, in the process, it's produced an external level, and these external levels, unfortunately, brought about Esav's trying to attack Yaakov with 400 men. But when Mashiach will come, when all of the Birurim will be completed, and death will be swallowed up forever. And I'm going to get rid, Hashem says, of any spirit of impurity. Then Ephraim is going to return the 400 coins that come from Avram, which are meant to have the koyach, to elevate those things that have to be elevated, it's going to come back to Kedusha. And now, when Yaakov gets this response from the Malachim, he understood, okay, it's impossible for Esav to give me any of this tayu, which is requesting. Now, Esav is down here. So what's the Eitzah? Yaakov said, okay, I have no choice. Esav's not going to give it to me. Then the only thing left is he said, the only way that I could do this, I have to do the makif myself. I'm not going to get it from Esav. There's a way to do it. And the way to get that makif is a process of man and mad. You have to do something from below to evoke that it should come. We'll stop over here. But the idea is that the gift that Yaakov gave Esav was to try to evoke from Esav when you give, it creates a reciprocal response. And that's going to get something from Yaakov itself, which Esav has, but he's not in the position to give it because it's still low. Yaakov is a higher level. He could access it with a certain process. And that was the gift of taking something from Yaakov, giving it to Esav, which is the idea of the idea of Mayim Nukvin, the feminine, the giving, the creating, causing there should be a giving, which is what Yaakov did, and that's why he gave also non-kosher animals to. It's also why he gave non-kosher animals to Esav. But on Shabbos we could continue. Thanks for joining.